complete cure for death is the resurrection. Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 3, the Torah portion, Chukat. Let's continue reading now in the book of Numbers, or Bamidbar, chapter 19, beginning with verse 13. Anyone who touches the dead of a human being and does not cleanse himself defiles the dwelling place of Yahweh. And that being shall be cut off from Israel. He is unclean. For the water of uncleanness was not sprinkled upon him, and his uncleanness is still on him. This is the Torah when a man dies in a tent. All who come into the tent and all who are in the tent are unclean for 7 days. And every open vessel which has no cover fastened on it is unclean. Anyone in the open field who touches someone slain by a sword, or who has died, or a bone of a man, or a burial site, is unclean for 7 days. For the unclean being, they shall take some of the ashes of the heifer burnt for cleansing from sin, and running water shall be put on them in a vessel. And a clean man shall take hyssop, and dip them in the water, and sprinkle it on the tent, and on all the vessels, and on the beings who were there, and on the one who touched a bone, or the slain, or the dead, or a burial site. And the clean one shall sprinkle the unclean on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day. And on the 7th day he shall cleanse himself, and shall wash his garments, and bathe in water, and shall be clean in the evening. But the man who is unclean and does not cleanse himself, that being shall be cut off from the assembly of Israel, from the assembly, because he has defiled the set-apart place of Yahweh. Water for uncleanness has not been sprinkled on him. He is unclean. Then he says that this is a law for them forever. So is Yah really concerned about whether we've gone to a graveyard to visit a grave, or dealt with death on a battlefield, or went to a funeral home and was exposed to an open casket, etc.? He says it's a law forever. The reality of death is too horrific for most. Having anyone coming from battle trauma, or nursing or medical situations where people have died, it's a very powerful and impacting thing, at least on the mind. But we're not talking about sin here. We're talking about ritual uncleanness. As far as the tabernacle or temple would be concerned, one is limited or prevented even from having access to this environment if they are tainted by the power or the influence of death. Yah says there is a ritual. Now, anytime we look at the rituals that are prescribed, they should be for us a revelation of who Yeshua is. So in the reading of these passages, we can frame our minds with, well, I just don't believe that all that's necessary, or I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore, or just trying to figure out all of the ins and outs and particulars of how this might have been carried out. Or we can also say, where is Yeshua in the midst of this? And so yesterday we dealt with the practical aspects of the cleansing soap that may have been formulated. But let's look now at the spiritual application. There is scarlet involved in this, scarlet blood. This goes back to then the idea of Pesach, where blood was sprinkled upon the lintels and the doorpost. One might ask, were those lintels and doorposts made out of cedar? And that would be interesting as a connection. What's also interesting is that the blood was applied to the lintel and doorposts with none other than hyssop, also used again here. The effect of blood on the doorposts applied with hyssop is that the messenger of death hops or passes by. Interesting. In the book of Numbers, chapter 9, verse 13, and chapter 19, verse 13, it connects it. The one who fails to observe Pesach when they have opportunity to do so, they're cut off from Israel. Also, then, the one who fails to be cleansed by the waters for purification or purification from uncleanness is also cut off. So there's another connection. In the book of Leviticus, Vayikra chapter 14, verse 1 through 7, you will find that these same elements of cedar and scarlet and hyssop, etc., they are used for the process of cleansing one who has sarat, the leper, the metzora. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 9, verse 19 and 20, it says that Moshe brought the people of Israel into the covenant, again utilizing these same elements, hyssop, scarlet, and cedar. So the red heifer and its ritual formulation is connected then to Pesach or Passover, to the cleansing of one who has sarat or who is the metzora, the unclean one. And it's also about bringing people, Yah's people in particular, into the covenant of the Torah with Israel. Yeshua is our Pesach lamb. He is the one that fills us with life, atones for us with his blood, and the messenger of death passes by. He is the one who cleanses the metzora, the man or woman afflicted with sarat. And we see this many times where Yeshua healed such people and he cleanses them. He's also the one by whose atoning work brings us into the covenant that was offered to Abraham, to Isaac, and Jacob, and has continued now to the lineage of Israel. So he is then also should be revealed to us in the act or the formulation or the ritual of the red heifer. And indeed, he is the one who cleanses us from the effects of the death that is a result of the curse of sin. In the day that you sin, you shall surely die, Yah said. Yeshua is the one who redeems us from that curse. It's also interesting that the ancient scholar Alfred Adelsheim, if I can say his name correctly, he says that the red heifer was taken to the Mount of Olives to be slain. Personally, I believe that Yeshua was also slain on the Mount of Olives. There, the red heifer and our Pesach offering in Yeshua are presented to Yah to cleanse us from the defilement of death and to restore us to the calling of Yah upon our lives, removing sins, restoring righteousness, granting to us access to his divine presence. There's also vital connections between the red heifer and the bull offering that is offered up in addition to the goat offerings on Yom Kippur. Both are performed only by the high priest. The blood is sprinkled 7 times toward the tent with the red heifer, 7 times toward the ark at Yom Kippur. The red heifer cleanses from the uncleanness of the people from sin and death. In Yom Kippur, the uncleanness of the people from sin. And the red heifer is completely burned up, as is the bull that is offered on Yom Kippur, completely burned up. So there is a connection then between the red heifer and even Yom Kippur. So the red heifer, the Pesach lamb, the scapegoat, and the bull of Yom Kippur all speak the same message, that if you have been defiled and you've lost your connection to Yah, you've lost your opportunity to his presence, you feel defiled, you feel tainted, then the work of Yeshua is about restoring you to right identity, to right access, to righteousness, to joy and peace in the Ruach HaKodesh, restoring you. Yah wants to restore you. And so we see then that the ultimate cure for death is the resurrection. Yeshua said in Yochanan chapter 11, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he dies, yet shall he live. We're not just hanging on until we die, folks. We're living in Yeshua. Let Yeshua be alive in you and be found alive in him. Happy resurrection, hope, and anticipation. We'll see you again tomorrow. Till then, shalom.